Steve Dangle here. The NHL Trade Deadline is come and gone. Let's see who went. First deal, little deal. Ryan Carpenter going from the Chicago Blackhawks to the Calgary Flames. He's depth forward, can play a little bit of center, a little bit of wing, and it only cost the Flames a 5th round pick. Carpenter has 26 games of NHL Stanley Cup playoff experience. No goals though. This is a pretty interesting name. Max Domi going from the Columbus Blue Jackets. It went a little quiet on him, and it was after the trade deadline that it was finally revealed. Max Domi going from the Columbus Blue Jackets to the Carolina Hurricanes. Probably should have finished that sentence. In exchange, the Columbus Blue Jackets got a prospect from the Carolina Hurricanes named Aiden Hreschuk, who they got 94th overall last draft. Here's the thing with Max Domi. Yeah, he's fallen off a little bit, but we know what he can do. Defensively, he's not going to be there every shift. Offensively, the upside is high, or at least the ceiling is quite high. He's a really good playmaking forward. And no matter how he's playing, on any given night, he has hands that could punch the cold off of ice. Max Domi is a lightning in a bottle sort of player, and if Rod Brind'Amour harnesses that power the right way, he could be a big ad for the Hurricanes. Next, we got an underratedly large deal between the Detroit Red Wings and the St. Louis Blues, who I think look really good. Detroit receives Luke Wallman, Oscar Sundquist, and a 2023 second round pick. St. Louis gets Luke Witkowski and Nick Leddy, smooth skating defenseman. So the St. Louis Blues get the left-handed defender that they were looking for. Also, you'll notice how many of these picks are in the future. There's some 2022 picks going around, a lot of 2024 surprisingly, and teams are really coveting these 2023 picks. That draft, the 2023 draft, is supposed to be phenomenal. So that's good for Detroit, that makes sense, but as for the St. Louis Blues, they're a good team who became better. Forgot to talk about this in a previous video, but the Leafs trade Alex Biega, defenseman, to the Nashville Predators in exchange for future considerations, which usually means nothing. Biega did play a game or two for the Toronto Maple Leafs earlier this year. Right-handed defenseman, can really skate, defense first. He can be additional depth for the Nashville Predators, who can never have enough of it. For the Leafs, he frees up a contract spot that the Leafs could potentially use on one of their college players, specifically the two guys who played for the American Olympic team, Nick Abruzzese and Matthew Knies. Hilariously, on the waiver wire front, Peter Marazzi clears waivers for the Leafs. That one's not as surprising. But Hari Sateri, who the Leafs just signed from Sibir Novosibirsk of the KHL, he had to clear waivers in order for that contract to go through, and he didn't. He got claimed by the Arizona Coyotes. So even though he signed a contract with the Toronto Maple Leafs yesterday, he has to play for the Coyotes. So those are the same. In terms of big contracts, this one just totally flew under the radar. Jesperi Kotkaniemi, 8-year extension in Carolina, $4.82 million per, huge number for the young lad. The Edmonton Oilers add to their offensive depth, getting Derek Brassard from the Philadelphia Flyers for a 4th round pick. Derek Brassard is not quite the player that he once was, but he's still pretty reliably in the neighborhood of about half a point a game, which on Edmonton, that should be good enough. Edmonton's such a difficult team to read. They have so much star power up front. I always feel like one move is just going to jiggle around the chemistry just enough, and then they'll go flying. Could this be the one? I don't know. Kulak on defense, Brassard up front, those could be good additions for the Oilers. Speaking of Canadian teams that were busy, Tyler Mott from the Vancouver Canucks, pending UFA, going to the New York Rangers. Same deal as Derek Brassard, that only cost the Rangers a 4th round pick. The Canucks, who are rebuilding, but not really, get a pick that will help them in the future. And by the way, that doesn't mean it has to be in the draft. Like, they could just as easily, at the draft, flip that pick for someone else. Someone who helps them now, but now in the future. Does that make sense? Jake DeBrusk staying put in Boston is pretty relevant. It was rumored he was going to be moved. His qualifying offer was over $4 million. Well, instead, he re-signs in Boston for $4 million annually. There were rumors that a sign and trade could be happening, but that never materialized. It's weird that he's re-signed and could still be dealt. Obviously, any deal is going to have to wait until after the season now. We've talked a lot about second-round picks. A team that is giving up a second-round pick in 2022 is the Pittsburgh Penguins. And they're one of the few playoff teams to be giving up guys off their roster in a deal. So it's a 2022 second, Zach Aston-Reese and Dominic Simone as part of the package going to Anaheim in exchange for winger Rickard Rakell. Now, a few years ago, Rickard Rakell was turning into a destroyer of worlds. Like, he was a consistent 30-goal scorer, and he looked like he was only going to get better while being an analytical darling. Injuries have made it hard for him to get in and stay in Anaheim's lineup. Now he's going to Pittsburgh, a team that seems to pretty consistently have injury trouble, yet succeed despite that. Meanwhile, the Ducks get a couple players. They also acquire Evgeny Dodonov in a separate deal with the Vegas Golden Knights. They're going through an interesting rebuild/retool. They got rid of Lindholm and Manson, but they weren't too far out of the playoff picture at the beginning of the trade deadline. Doesn't look like they'll be too far out of it by the end of the season. They're somewhat competitive. They have key players in place. I understand why they wouldn't want to blow up the whole thing. Rickard Rakell could, hilariously, end up playing with Sidney Crosby or Evgeny Malkin after everything. 28 points in 51 games so far this season. Not great, not terrible at all. And last but not least, Andrew Copp going to the New York Rangers. You know what? After all the teams that were rumored to be in on Kopp, I think the Rangers are a real good fit. First of all, he already knows a bunch of those guys. Tyler Mott, who's just getting there. He's played with him. Jacob Trouba, he made fun of him on Sportsnet's broadcast. And I just feel like his hardworking style, like he's exactly what the New York Rangers are trying to be. I think he's going to be a big problem in the playoffs, and not for the Rangers. In exchange, the Winnipeg Jets get forward Morgan Barron, a 5th-round pick, and 2 conditional seconds. One of the seconds, we're not sure which year it's going to end up being. The other second is based on playoff performances, and if the Rangers make it 3 rounds deep and Kopp is there for at least half of the games, it could be a first. So Winnipeg Jets fans, I got news for you. You're cheering for the New York Rangers now. So what do you think? Who are the biggest winners and the biggest losers of the NHL trade deadline? Leave a comment in the comment box down below. I think the Rangers are a pretty good team. I don't think you can underestimate how good of an ad Marc-Andre Fleury is for the Minnesota Wild. And holy smokes, the Atlantic Division. What an arms race. So that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends. That's a wrap for the 2022 NHL Trade Deadline.